Hey guys, another video I'm wanting to talk about is on being in a relationship with somebody else who's dealing with depression, going through a period of depression, because this is probably one of the hardest things. I went through depression personally, and so did Rainbow Harmony while we were in the relationship, and I found it to be one of the more challenging moments of a relationship because because depression is for me at least some kind of experience where you have experienced a loss, where you have come to a realization about maybe something that is gone, something that cannot be changed. Altogether, I feel like it has to do with loss, but being in a relationship where someone else has difficulty finding happiness, finding contentness, will be very challenging because you'll notice this other person has a hard time getting up in the morning, cleaning up after themselves, eating at all sometimes, and if they do eat, they have a hard time eating full meals, eating on a regular basis, eating healthy. They may choose to go for more sugary stuff because it kind of helps with the depression cycle. At least they get to experience like a good body feel. Basically, it causes some chemical reactions in the body when you eat lots of sugar. Helps you to feel kind of like euphoria sometimes. It's kind of creepy, but depression is difficult because the hardest thing is knowing, as the person outside of that depression, can you handle being around it and being okay with it for an indefinite period of time? Because depression changes, it can change your brain, literally your brain chemistry. And so when you're going through depression as an individual, you're going to notice that it just may seem like a wall. And when other people are trying to help you with it, it can make you feel like people just aren't okay with you feeling sad, and they're going to want to try to bring you up. And instead, the best way to help people dealing with depression is actually just to allow them to be. You don't have to go down there with them. And so people kind of have a hard time knowing what that looks like. And knowing what that looks like, I feel like, has to do with really understanding it, recognizing that depression is a place where they just want to be at a slow moving state, where there is not very much energy, not much motivation to get out and do and be. And so the difficulty is not knowing how to be there with them without being drawn down into their depression. And that takes boundaries. That takes knowing where you're at emotionally, being okay with somebody else who's down, and knowing, you know what, they're down. I'm okay with them being down. I don't have to be down there with them, but I do want to be present with them. I do want to acknowledge their feelings, and I do want to maybe even have conversations with them, watch movies with them, eat food with them. But know that you don't have to eat the junk food with them. You can have your own meal, and they can have their own meal, so to speak. It's like a metaphor or something like that. But you can have your own meal, they can have their own meal, and you can eat together, and you can watch movies together, and hang out together, go places together, go for walks, those kind of things, without going down there yourself. And that's the hard part, is in depression, you may want, to commiserate on the situation. And that is helpful sometimes to basically have empathy for what they're going through. And I feel like that's the biggest part of it, honestly, is having empathy. But it does take some strength. And so recognize that being around this person if you're in a relationship with them, will be difficult because you're gonna want to empathize, but you're gonna maybe you'll be around them a lot, and so empathizing with them can be difficult for you because it might drag you down. So you want to spend time with them, ask them what they want to do. If they don't want to do anything, offer suggestions, but not suggestions that imply that like they need to get better or improve their mood. Offer suggestions that you honestly feel like somebody who's depressed would want to do. A lot of times, best suggestions are things that involve making the body feel good, and that can be like massage, anything that you feel like this person would enjoy physically, and that can be getting in a pool and relaxing. Trying to think. Anything, like I said, anything physical that will help the body feel good. And that can be, like I said, massage, anything where the body might be moving, but obviously in depression it's kind of hard to feel like you want to move your body around. Maybe laying in a hammock on a beach or something like that, anything that helps the body feel good. That's why a lot of times it's difficult for people with depression to avoid going to vices like drugs, and because it helps the body feel better. And a lot of times depression makes you not want to be in your body. It makes you want to check out and escape and pass time and not be present with the sadness. And so if you want to help this person through depression, best thing you can do is to simply just back off, try not to be hands-on, and like really kind of get into their life and try and move things around and change and force. Allow them to be. That's the best thing you can do, because if you're not getting involved, they're going to be able to finally be present with what they're feeling. The more you can do that's conducive to them being present with how they're feeling, the better. And that's not to say like you're supposed to get in there and be like, don't you realize what you're experiencing and you're sad and like this and that. Like there's a peaceful way of doing that doesn't involve like force or coercion to constantly try and direct conversation into why they're depressed and what's really going on and be their therapist and everything. The best thing you can do as a friend, as a partner, is to just be present and to talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. I would say there's a fine line between, because I was going to say, you can, as a friend or as a partner, try to avoid encouraging what they do that escapes. But I feel like there's a fine line there. I don't really know how that works without involving like control again, because I feel like that has to do more with you. Like, do you feel comfortable taking part in that behavior? If you don't feel comfortable taking part in that behavior, that's your boundary. And I feel like that's really where the decision making really lies, is if you feel like you're taking part in a behavior that's enabling something negative, that's enabling something that you feel uncomfortable with, then obviously that's your choice. That's where you can draw the line. But being present with people during depression is difficult, because this can mean maybe you're working a lot, and because they're depressed, they're unable to find work, or maybe they're calling off sick a lot, and if you feel like it's endangering the financial stability. And so that's the second part I was going to get into. Sorry. Is enabling. I feel like there will always be challenges in a relationship, especially with things like depression. You may experience loss more than once in your relationship. You may both experience loss. This can be something that happens, like, say, if you have a child and you lose a child together. A lot of times it's so much loss that the relationship will break, because the stress of actually being present with each other through such a dark experience will be too difficult to handle, because you are being present with your own pain, and you have to also be present with somebody else's pain. How you process that pain may be different from your partner processing their pain, and that difference can be enough to split you up. So what I wanted to say though is being present with another person's depression, while it affects your financial stability or maybe your emotional stability, there comes a point in time, I feel, where you may notice that, and I feel like this has to do with obviously a case-to-case basis. It also depends on how exactly this is affecting you personally, how you feel this situation is adding to maybe past problems in the relationship that have not gone addressed. This has to do with maybe the history of this person. So I feel like this is definitely like something that you may need to think about more than just kind of on a whim deciding that this is too much to handle and you want to separate. But I feel like there may be a point in your relationship where you realize that this depression is not going to change, and like I said, this is a case-to-case basis, because this this has to do with your involvement and how much you've actually allowed them to process this pain. If you've been in a relationship that depression's been a huge part of it, and you want to, I would recommend taking a look back at how exactly you've participated in that healing process. If you take a look back and you may notice that you've been heavily involved, try changing your strategy, try being hands-off, and if you've been hands-off for quite a bit of time and nothing's changed, maybe change your strategy. I don't normally recommend that you become hands-on unless, like I said, unless it hasn't worked. But I feel like obviously trying something different has to do with the other person, has to do with maybe what they're familiar with. Maybe they're familiar with people really getting involved, and I feel like that encourages codependent behavior, so maybe I should take that back, actually. But there may be a point in your relationship where you realize, you know what, this has been going on for far too long. I feel like letting it go even further encourages a negative experience for both of us, and codependency. You should look up codependency if you aren't familiar with that term. And so there may be a point where you're thinking to myself, I don't know how much longer I can handle this. You may have already had the conversation with them where you said that. And I feel like at this point, for you, you want somebody else to make this decision for you, or to give you permission to separate or to end it. And if you're not looking for that, great, because this is your decision, and it has to do with your personal situation and your needs in the relationship, your boundaries as a person, where you end and where they begin. And if that's unclear, and if you feel like you are being taken advantage of, this can be a difficult time to be objective, because it's causing a lot of stress, financial stress, emotional stress, spiritual stress. So I recommend two things. First thing, if you haven't already had a conversation with them where you are supportive, encouraging, but firm and challenging to the situation, like where you've really addressed, I really appreciate you, I really love you, and I really care about you. I want you to be free to experience what you're experiencing, what you're going through right now. So I don't want this to come across as maybe that I am unhappy with the way that you are. I know you, or I have just come to know you, and I feel like I want this relationship to continue. I value it deeply. And then you talk about basically how and you know, obviously be gentle, but how maybe you feel like there's a part of the experience in the relationship that you're having to change yourself in order to make the relationship work, and that it's causing undue stress, that you want to be yourself and you want to allow them to be themselves, but that you feel like there's basically not enough chemistry to continue making this relationship work. And so I would recommend that if you haven't had that conversation, that you do have that conversation. Try and be as honest as possible. Allow the other person to be as honest as possible without judgment. Try to listen. Maybe even write things down. Maybe if they want to write things down, that's cool too. If you want to record it, I mean, obviously don't get creepy about it, but have that conversation. Once you've had that conversation and you've allowed it some time to sink in, you've allowed that to really expand as much as possible, then I think it would be time to offer up, unfortunately, not a threat or an ultimatum, but expressing your intentions, saying something like this: I have these needs, and right now I feel like they're not being met. Tell them how you feel. Tell them maybe it's caused some pain. Tell them, be honest about this. And this is about getting into your heart space, being truthful, truthful about your own involvement and your own responsibilities, truthful about any kind of blame or not blame, any kind of shared responsibilities in the relationship, and maybe how you've been short on that. And that will allow them to be less defensive. But to say basically that you have some very deep needs. Express your boundaries, express how you feel like maybe you're not being allowed to be yourself. And I would suggest setting a time frame, being very, very clear about that, and expect to have to follow through that. And once you've given that to this person in your relationship, I feel like this has to do with you really knowing what's good for you and what's healthy for you. I don't want to give you permission to go off and do this. This really is your choice, and you bear the responsibility of any kind of repercussions, whether that's financial or emotional or spiritual. So I'm just saying that as a precaution. Offer that time frame. Tell them what your intentions are. If your intentions are to basically begin the process of separation, or to give them time to come up with some kind of a compromise or a change that allows you to continue to be yourself in the relationship, that fixes any kind of financial instabilities, that offers them a chance to make up for maybe time lost, or maybe any kind of wrongdoings you feel have happened. If you can offer that space and just back off and see what happens, that's usually my best suggestion. And that way you have basically expressed your true intentions. You intend to follow through on them. Don't say this if you don't intend on following through. This will make it worse if you say something like that and don't follow through. We just work that way. We know if we can get away with it, we'll do it again. And so that just encourages bad habits in the relationship. But that's my suggestion. If it actually has come to that, which I hope it hasn't, if you have any questions about this, I would love to help you, love to get into maybe your situation and to see what's happened, to dig into it together and to find a solution that is really the best for everyone involved. Because that's really what you got to think about, is what's the best for you and the best for him or her or they. And so I really feel like that's the best situation and best suggestions for me. Obviously, everybody's got a different opinion about this. I'd love to hear your opinion, though. I'm always trying to learn a new perspective and new methods of making it through these difficult kinds of situations, because I have a lot of clients who experience this, and so far this is what's worked for me, and so far it seems to have worked for other people as well. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, so comment, like if you like what you're hearing, subscribe if you want to hear more, share any suggestions you have for topics. I'm going to put my email down below so you can email me if you have any questions. I'm answering emails for free, so I see you guys around.